Okay, so this live stream is going to be a little bit different, not quite as much coding as some of the others. And instead, I'm going to look at and go through a GitHub pull request that was put in by, I hope I'm not butchering your name, Remé, on the GitHub. So we're just going to pull this over. So this is what the main GitHub plugin screen looks like, the main repo screen looks like. And then if you look up here, you can change to the different branches and what was done, if we just look in the pull request, is that Remé had cloned, go with this one, had cloned the tutorial 4a branch and then went ahead and made some changes to it and then basically requested a pull so that I can put that back into the tutorial 4a branch, which is what I'm going to do. Let's just take a look at what things he suggested. So if we click on his commit, what we can see is what's called a Diffs file. And basically it just lists the portions of the files that have been changed, along with a little bit of extra code around them for context. I hope I'm actually, yeah, I guess I'm streaming okay. My computer was acting up a little bit. Okay, so a couple things that he suggested. So one of the things that was suggested, I keep using he as a pronoun. I'm not sure if that's what the person actually prefers. So I'm going to try and stop doing that. So one thing that they suggested was that having to use this let menu divider equal target menu dot children 2 wasn't that robust. And a better way to do it is to be able to use children dot named item. But in order to do that, we need to alter the HR in our menu that we're adding in to include an ID. So that way we can more easily target it. And so his first change that they suggest is to add this ID equals ruler1. And then down below, instead of doing this let menu divider equal target menu dot children, we can now do let menu divider equal target menu dot children dot named item. So this can be used on a collection, and then just pass in. And this named item can take a number of things, but in this case he's passing in that ID of ruler-1. And note, you don't have to put a hash in front of it. So now with that, we can do the same thing of target menu insert before new items menu divider. And then he also has this console log in there. We're just going to go ahead and leave that for now. We'll take it out probably later. Okay, so that is the one thing that he recommended. The other thing, if we look back, so the other item, the other two items are here. He removed some variables. So basically, sometimes when I'm typing long, I don't chain very well. And to simplify the code, to neaten the code up, they made two suggestions. So instead of defining a variable of menu item 1 set to a string that contained our item we wanted to add, and then setting our inner HTML to that variable, they recommended that we just sort of chain that all together and basically just have list1.innerHTML being set to the string rather than setting a variable to the string and then setting the inner HTML. Same thing with the second item. Rather than declaring a variable with the menu item and then adding it, just go ahead and directly set that inner HTML. So just go back to the pull request. So basically, I'm just going to go ahead and I think on this one, so we can see down here that this branch has no conflicts with the base branch, and so we can just go ahead and say that we want to pull the request from rjsweblab on this branch into that same branch. So we're not bringing it into the master, we're bringing it into the branch. So let me just hit. And so now if we go back and look at the code and jump to that branch, open up this and look down, we can now see that we have an HR ID of ruler 1, and we have those variables removed. So that's all pretty good. So the other thing that Remé noticed and commented on is that we actually have a slight problem with this add event handler. And this is with an edge case that I didn't consider because it's not something I do in Pinegrow very often. So if we look back here, right now, again, if we look at the menu, we don't have those two items because we don't have a project open. Now, if we just go ahead and click on a project, we see that the project has opened and it's added these two. So I don't really use this that much, but the other thing that you can do in Pinegrow is have more than one project open at once. And so you can just say File, Open Project in New Window. I'm just going to drop back one, just do this. So when we open this, it opens in an entirely new window. This new window has its own dev tools, has its own settings, everything like that. And if we look up here, though, at the menu, the GitHub menu, we see there's only two items. So this is an open project, so we should have 4 items open. And if we go ahead and pull our code over, so this is actually the tutorial 5. This isn't the tutorial 4a that the suggestions were made on. So there's a little bit more code here. But what we can see if we scroll down, and also I haven't pulled those code changes over into here, so I'll do that a little bit later. But what we can see is if I put a console log I fired, that basically sends this to the console whenever the on project loaded event handler fires. If we look back here, what's the best way to do this? Let's make this a little smaller. Got lots of stuff open on the window now. So if we take a look and we pull up that dev tool, we can see down in the console, I fired. So this one actually fired. Now, if we look at the dev tools for this window and for this project, let's bring up the console itself, we can see we don't see that message. So opening it up, it didn't fire over here in the new project. So now let's close this. Let's do that once again. Let's go to the console here. Let's clear this. Let's close this project. So we'll open the project again. We can see the I fired logging out to the console. Now if we go ahead and open a new project in another window, again, drop back, grab the save test, select. So we don't see it here. The one thing that I wanted to see that I hadn't tested yet is whether or not it was going to fire over here once again, and it hasn't. Okay, so we have a problem in that when we go to add our additional items, they're not getting opened if we open a project in a new window. So we're going to have to alter this event handler. And I've looked through all the different event handlers that I could find within Pinegrow, and none of them necessarily worked out how I'd like them to. And so what we're going to have to do is not just have a single event handler, but an event handler that then actually does some testing to see if a project is open. So let's just go ahead and open or start a new branch. Tutorial 6. So now that we have the new branch, we're going to change this. So instead of using the on project loaded, we're going to use a new window registered. Oops. So the only thing that I'm worried about with this event handler is that this is going to fire too often. So I don't know if we should also, if we also need to check. Yeah, we will need to check. So we're going to have to do 2 checks. So first off, let's just save this. Go back over to Pinegrow. Close that down. Close that down. Reload. Okay, so now what you can see is we haven't opened a project yet, but our menu items are there, and it says I fired. And that's because as soon as you open up a window, it's going to fire. So now I think if we go ahead and open a project in a new window, that opens up. And once again, you can see down here that it fired. The one thing that I'm not sure about is if I was to pop this out. Yeah, it's going to fire again. That's going to be tough. So this is going to fire when we want it to. But I think we're going to have to do 2 different checks. First, we're going to have to check to see if there is a project. And second, we're going to have to check if these menu items have already been added before we do the rest of this code. So let's, can I do this? Let's see if I can do that. So, get rid of this notice, go back over to Pinegrow, close that window out, just do a restart. Okay, so fired, then an object. So project, in this case, comes back as passing an actual window. What happens now if we open? Oh, funky. Funky, funky. Look at that. So I expected that to fire again, and it didn't. So maybe this isn't the right event handler at all. Let's go ahead and open a new one and see what happens. Yeah, that immediately brings back a project, so we can't even test. Well, that one makes sense. It's supposed to bring back a project, but this one should not. Yeah, that isn't going to work at all. All right, so I have to come up with a different solution. So I was hoping this was going to basically fire when anybody opened up any new project, and then we could check to make sure that there was a project loaded. But it's actually right from the get-go. I thought this was going to be null, but it's not. It's firing. So we need to figure something else out. So I'm going to have to go back to Scratch and look once again through Pinegrow, see if there's a better way to do this. If not, if I don't find a good event handler to do this, I think what we're going to have to do is set up a mutations listener on the page, I guess. I'm going to have to think this one over. All right. I think I'm going to wrap up there, though. It's a nice Sunday, and I need to get some stuff done outside to get the farm up and running and to get trees that have come down with the various tornadoes and winter weather out of the garden. And so, again, thanks to Remé, I guess, Remé, and his rjsweblab, I think, rjsweblab, for collaborating with me on this and making a pull request. And I invite anybody else out there to make similar pull requests. Just go ahead, check out a branch, and then push your code changes back to that branch. And yeah, I look forward to more collaboration. Until next time.